Good to see you, David. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
So you're a Reagan guy.
Right.
You were there leading really budget goodness or positive situation. What do you think about a 65% tax on estates?
Well, I think this is just standard Beltway demagoguery and indirection. We don't have an estate tax problem. 99.8% of the people who die in America don't pay an estate tax because there's a $5 million exemption already. So what she's doing is focusing on a tiny little fraction of the population. This 65% tax may hit 100 or 200 estates a year. The amount of revenue involved is trivial. The estate tax today only raises $18 billion a year, which is about 36 hours worth of government spending. So what I'm saying is we've got 100 million families in America who've had no net worth gain for the last 30 years. We have not created any real breadwinner, full-time, full-pay jobs since the year 2000. Real household income, if you use a proper inflation measure, is down 20% since 2000. That's the problem. It's massive. Flyover America is being left behind economically.
What is she doing about that, David?
She's doing nothing about it. In fact, she's embracing all the wrong things. She is the candidate of the status quo. I believe this election is a referendum on the status quo. 30 years of misrule by the Washington Wall Street elites. We have more wars than we'll need for a century. We've got debt of $20 trillion that's unsustainable. We have a Fed that has basically destroyed price discovery, ruined the financial markets, created a casino-like financial system, and left behind, as I call it, and Trump addresses it, fly over America.
I want to talk about that. I definitely want to get back into the Fed for a second. But let me stay on this tax for a moment, because you say it's only going to hit a couple hundred. All right, but I mean, if your estate is $5 million or more, I think that's more than a couple hundred. I mean, but still, you're saying that we don't get a lot of revenue from estate taxes, is your point.
But
doesn't she see that? Why does she think charging somebody 65% of their estate, having their kids pay that? Why does she think that's effective when we don't even get a lot of money? It's not going to move the needle on revenue, is what we're saying. Does she not understand that?
Who knows? I think it's demagoguery. I think it's populism. I think she's trying to say, see, I haven't sold out to Wall Street after all. In fact, she thinks Janet Yellen is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and Janet Yellen has made 1% of the population hideously rich with these bubble finance policies that do nothing for the average Main Street person.
I don't even know if she would keep Janet Yellen in place, because I heard that she wants to put Lael Brainard.
Well, she's even worse. Okay, she's even worse. Oh my God, she's even worse.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, how can you say after 93 months of zero interest rates, as she did, Brainard, I don't think we're quite ready for a rate increase? This has nothing to do with inflation.
Who do you think Trump would want in the Fed?
It's very hard for me to say, because I don't know what his views are on the Fed, but we know he wants
Janet Yellen out. He said that.
He said that she's an embarrassment, and he's right. He said this is a false market, false economy. He's right. He said that these interest rates at practically zero are artificial, unsustainable, and they have to change. Now,
another thing that he said, David, I want to get your take on that. He's saying that Hillary Clinton is waging war on energy. We know what he wants to do, tapping into energy resources. Watch this. I want to get your reaction.
Hillary Clinton's war on energy will cost our economy $5 trillion at least. She's not only declared war on the miners, but on all oil and natural gas production. It's war, which supports 10 million jobs in the United States. And you people know it's war. It's going to be worse under her than it's been under President Obama.
This is another area where these two are very different. It's a very clear choice. Do you want to tap into the energy resources of this country or not?
Well, I think what you want to do is liberate the free market to develop as much energy at a market price as we can. Hillary is just the opposite. She wants to regulate. She wants Washington to pick and choose which technology is appropriate, which isn't. She wants huge subsidies, loan guarantees, tax credits for solar and wind and so forth. Frankly, I was there in 1978 on the Energy Committee in Congress when Jimmy Carter said, put on your cardigan sweater and shiver in the dark. dark. And we have been having the same debate for the last 35 years. Does this problem get addressed and solved by Washington, or is this a issue for the market, for entrepreneurs and technology? Clearly it's the latter. Of the two candidates, at least Trump gets the point that we don't solve this problem in Washington, we unleash the private sector.
Janet Yellen and Trump are in a bit of a spat right now over whether to raise interest rates and whether or not the decision to raise rates is actually political. Do you think they haven't raised because they're political?
Absolutely. The Fed is political, but not just in an election sense. The Fed is run today by Keynesian economists who have a political ideology that capitalism can't function without massive intrusion, pegging of interest rates, management of the yield curve, backing up the market with puts and all the rest of it. The wealth effects policy, all of this put together is big government on steroids run through the Federal Reserve. That's political.
What do you think of Trump's economic plan? I mean, it's very clear. Number one, it is lowering taxes.
Right.
Number two, it's rolling back regulation. Number three, it's tapping into the energy. And number four, it is trade deals and redoing any deal that is not advantageous to America. Do you like the plan? The criticism is that it's expensive. It's going to cost a lot of money. What do you think?
Well, first of all, he proposes to cut taxes by $4.4 trillion over 10 years. That sounds big. That's 10% of the built-in base. I think we should cut the taxes by that much. But secondly, you're going to have to offset it with spending cuts, and there I think he's not been totally forthcoming. You can't exempt Social Security and Medicare. Put a means test on for the wealthy retirees. Second, we don't need a huge increase in defense. We should be cutting defense. Third, I would eliminate the payroll tax, which affects 160 million people. It's 15%. It's compounding our jobs problem because we got the highest labor costs in the world. We lay 15% on top of it, and do that rather than the income tax cut, which is only going to help about 10% of the population.
And the book is called Trump's. What are you trying to say?
What I'm trying to say is our economy's on the edge of ruin because of the debt and the money printing and the bubble finance that we've had for 30 years. And if we don't change direction fundamentally, it's going to be hopeless as we get into the 20s and as we get into the Social Security collapse, which I think is coming, as we get into public debt that's $20 trillion and rising. I'm not saying that Trump has all the answers, but he is the hands-down default candidate. If you want to keep doing what we've been doing, this is what the book says, elect Hillary because she's the class president of a 30-year regime that's wrecking capitalism and prosperity and democracy in America, turning Washington into, some kind of, political scam machine.
All right.